Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the F1 24 Driver Career Mode. We are here, Season 1, Episode 21. We're headed to the Brazilian Grand Prix, a sprint race weekend. And taking a look, it's going to be a little bit of weather affected, at least according to the primary box. It looks like the sprint is going to have some partial weather. Qualifying for the Grand Prix is going to be, looks to be heavy raining according to the tiny weather box, but we should have some dry running in the race itself. Hopefully be able to turn in a decent performance. Apologies for the big gap in drops of videos. We have hit kind of getting to the holiday season. Early November was very crazy and busy for me, and then I also ended up getting sick, so I had no voice to record any voiceovers with, which would not have been very fun at all. But we're back, we're rolling. I have at this point driven also the entirety of Season 2, and then I'm in progress in Season 3. So hopefully I'll start pumping these out a little bit quicker. The other thing that we do have coming up is a PC upgrade, and also gotten into iRacing. So we should have some new content coming forward. Or I bought iRacing, sorry. Haven't driven much other than tests, so I'm going to be having a from rookies, follow my journey in an actual sim kind of content coming as well. We'll see how much that cuts into F1 time, if I even continue running F1 aside from after Season 3. We'll find out. We'll see how it goes. We're just having fun here. But let's take a look back to F1 24 and see if there's anything interesting going on in the messages. So let's take a peek and see if we get any extra details of the weather. Doesn't look like it, so no additional weather details, at least this far. So who knows how long that weather is going to stay with us. We've exceeded our rating pretty significantly, our target goal. So taking a look and seeing what we can do as far as development-wise. We're kind of squarely in the middle of the pack. And we've only got a few races left to go. We've had to take several engine penalties throughout the year. But we should, barring any other failures, it looks like we've got 4 failures so far, should have plenty of components to get to the end. But I think the MGU-H is about the only one that gets us into a little bit of trouble. But let's head over first to sprint qualifying.
Atmospheric tracks don't come much better than this. We're in Brazil for qualifying. Let's get some laps at the limit.
So here we are out on the first qualifying run. Obviously, you only get one set of soft tires in sprint qualifying. So we're setting kind of a baseline on the medium, bit of a lockup into turn 1. It's been a tricky little section for us to navigate so far in the practice sessions, but through the Senna S's, the first 3 corners, a nice little combination, and then Descida del Lago left-hander down the hill, a little bit camber into the corner, just about keeping it inside the track limits. Pierre Gasly goes to the 107s as the initial benchmark, and then into the middle sector, flick it in, find your braking point as we start to work through the slower section of the track, where the downforce really becomes key. Could have definitely carried a little more speed through that left-hander, but always tricky to keep the car from locking up on these very cambered braking zones. You unload the tires and then flat out down the hill into Junção, up the hill, this final real braking zone of the circuit on the power out of turn 12 there, and then it's all about minimizing the drag down. So 107.002 goes Fernando Alonso. How close will we get on the medium tires? A 108.748. So not a great start there. Have a lot of work still to do. In fact, they're now full 2 seconds off of George. But jumping back out to the track, starting the final run of the session. The sun is now out. So let's see what we can do into the opening corners. We definitely left some time on the board the first time, and now we've got the extra grippy soft tires. Decent run in the first 3 corners, but not the greatest. Only finding about 2/10. We need to find a significant amount of time in order to get anywhere. In fact, at the first sector split, we're still about a 10th off of P16 Valtteri Bottas, and those times are about to start improving everywhere as qualifying finishes up and drivers get their last runs across the line. 106.6 for Max Verstappen. This is really where these soft tires can come in to be an improvement through the middle sector of the track where you need that extra grip. So we found about 7/10, about 3/4 of a second. So we should be able to get a little bit more, but after this corner, not really much more time to be gained as it's just all power. And the exit's good, so we are finding a little bit of power, but now you see about 0.85 is going to be all that we're going to gain in this one. So just under a second when we needed about 2. Where does that put us? 19th, so second to last. Not nearly the improvement we wanted.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. We're racing then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3 that gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Perez, Stroll, Ocon, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, Albon, Gasly, Zhou, Ricciardo, Bottas, Oldtimer, and Logan Sargent. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out. Well, we welcome you to the broadcast. It's going to be some race today. First of all, introductions. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me for this one, Anthony Davidson. So, a sprint race today, and that means lights to flag, no stops. And how is that going to affect the driver behind the wheel?
Absolutely. So for today, there's no pit stop, or shouldn't be a pit stop anyway, if things go right, and you can forget about strategy. You're just driving today as fast as you can, make those overtakes if you need to, and that's what a sprint weekend's all about.
Okay, let's try not to worry about being down here at the back. You've got the speed, you've got the car, so just take it easy and the race will come to you.
So pretty straightforward, no stop on here. Looks like we're going to consider the soft tires. I don't think the mediums are really going to gain us. It's a pretty low deg track overall, but there's always a little worrying about that little bit of rain we might see at the very end of the race. Well, here we are with 5 red lights up. It looks like Ricciardo has opted for the mediums in front of us. It's going to be very difficult to hit the points in such a short event, but we do what we can try to do and have a look around the outside into turn 1. We stick our nose a little bit further up. We're still holding right behind Bottas there in 19th and now back to 20th. So we've actually lost a position here at the start. Try and grab some of the slipstream down into turn 4. Pull to the inside. We should be able to get on the brakes, get past Ricciardo, and then show him the edge of the track. And back up a position there. Now trying to chase down the pack of cars. It always slows down on these first lap into this big hairpin. In fact, we're going to go ahead and use that opportunity. Lunge up the inside of the Sauber Valtteri Bottas. Do we have the grip to stick around the outside? Not quite of Tsunoda. Try and get our nose ahead of Tsunoda, but we are going to dive up the inside. A little bit of a tiny bit of a front locking there. But Tsunoda still has the inside through this high-speed right-hander. He's going to have the outside, inside of Zhou. He's on the curve, has to make a correction. We are able to get the power down ahead of him. And now using our battery, making sure we can stay with the slipstream. So we are up 2 spots, up to P17 on the first lap, but with 12 whole laps in this one,
car ahead.
a lot of work to do and not a lot of time, as there's fighting behind us between Tsunoda and Bottas. Jumping ahead, lap 3 of 12, some yellow flags behind, or ahead actually, as smoke on the track. Who is that off to the right side? That is our teammate Nico Hülkenberg out of the session. And that is curtains for him. It is a position for us, but you can see a big gap up ahead of this group. So very likely no points going to be on offer, but we'll continue through this race, see what we can and can't do, can't learn about this track and what our good overtaking opportunities might be.
Nico's dropped out of this race.
Where we can burn battery, where we can save it. And big snap of oversteer, a little too much curb taken in turn 1. That's going to put me under threat from Yuki Tsunoda behind. We're going to have to use quite a bit of battery. We do still maintain the DRS, and we do maintain the position on Yuki ahead. So jumping a little further ahead, lap 5 of 12, we have another slow car up ahead. That's a Mercedes pulling off the circuit of George Russell. So another free position with no effort given, but no VSC or safety car intervention in that one, as there's a car off the racing line. Should be able to get recovered. Kind of wish the game would pay more attention to the fact that anytime somebody's got to get out of their car, there's going to be at least some kind of likely VSC, because you got to put marshals on track to at least roll it behind the wall. Could use a little more safety car intervention, I think, in the career modes. But we've got a pretty good run on Logan Sargent, who is starting to lose some ground to Pierre Gasly. We don't want to him to create a big gap, so we are sticking him. He's going to defend to the inside. We are going to wait, try and break late, wide around the outside, a little wide there. He's going to get his nose back ahead and fully ahead of us as we switch back to turn 2 and then turn 3. So no move is on there. A little bit of fighting between Gasly and it looks like Joe in front of us. They're nearly sizing up to go 3 wide, does Logan Sargent. So they got a very slow exit, still side by side, the 2 cars in front. But I don't think any particular parting of the seas is in store for us here. A little lunge, a bit of a lockup as we stick to the inside. Track limits exceeded ever so slightly, and then big snap of oversteer. I think we made contact with Tsunoda, and now the rear tires are just absolutely heated up from that wheel spin and that lockup. So trying to get these tires cooled back down is going to be very difficult. You can see the heat on the display there just for a second, starting to get into that orange territory where they start to lose significant amounts of grip. And of course, when those rear tires start to lose their grip, it is unless you can start cooling them down, it is a compounding effect where they will just continue to get hotter and hotter because they have less and less traction. You're typically sliding them more as you try and keep up with the pace. But I think we might, thanks to the long main straight, there is an opportunity to try and let those tires cool down a little bit, but they are directly under pressure again through the Senna S's and then turn 4 as it really leans on the acceleration of the car there. But we have managed to get through the pack. Logan Sargent actually has gotten ahead of both the Alpine and the Sauber in front, so there's a chance that we might be able to pick our way back through. They have Logan Sargent's done something interesting, but we are now all over the gearbox of the Alpine, having a little look. Tried to go and have a look to the inside, but he closed the door off. We have to actually kind of steer to the outside, cross over to make sure we don't make contact with him. But another lap in the books, and it looks like another lap just holding position in this sprint. So definitely a tough spot to be in, especially for a car that's middle of the performance charts. We should be challenging for points, but poor qualifyings are always going to hold us down in that regard. We're back on board, lap 8 of 12. And are we going to try and size up another move? We've got the ERS deployed back down in the medium, trying to recharge some battery. Tires are definitely getting fairly worn. You can see the gap actually starting to open up to the cars ahead. So I don't think our tire wear is doing quite as good as some of the cars around us, as we are struggling to keep up in the latter stages of this sprint. So a bit deep.
If you think you can get past, make use of the overtake button and see what you can do.
And we've managed to really crank up quite a bit of battery. Ooh, rear locking though into Jun Sao. Try to get the squiggles on to save that and keep it from going poorly. But here we are turning our battery deployment up to hot lap mode now. Not using the actual overtake deployment, but this will gain us quite a bit of time on our rivals at the end of the race. Ooh, big lockup from Sargent. Straight on he goes into turn 1. And that is him dropped right back down, and we managed to get another free position. Here we are, lap 11 of 12, starting the penultimate lap of the race. Side by side, Gasly and Zhou ahead, trying to size up some kind of exit that may gain us some time. Zhou closes the door directly on us. This time we have the overspeed, trying to slide our way through. We got our nose fully ahead of Zhou and get back to the outside portion of the racing line, not having to go fully 3 wide. Bottas sneaks through as well. And then now we've got Pierre Gasly up ahead of us. Now the goal here is going to be to conserve some battery through the middle part of this lap, have enough to deploy and attack on the last lap of this this sprint race. It's only going to be for P12 if we can get it. But even though it's no points, anything we can do is, going to be an improvement. So speed of Gasly through that middle sector, the grip really showing. He's able to open up a fair chunk of gap, but it's not going to be into turn 1 that we're going to go for the lead, the overtake here. We are going to use this DRS zone, try and close up to the back of the Alpine. Do we stick our nose in? Not quite. So on the brakes into turn 1, sweeping from the outside. And now trying to set up an exit off of turn 4. We might be just close enough. Let's see. We have a bit of a gap now. Deep in the slipstream. Overtake is going to be on, and we're nowhere close. Not anywhere close enough to get that overtake done into turn 4. So the struggle of the worn rear tires really putting us under pressure. You can see now Bottas actually putting a lot on us. And we'll see if we can't, at this point, just conserve battery to try and hold him off. Ooh, very deep. And Bottas is going to go to the outside. We are going to hold the inside, try and keep him behind. We do manage to get the car ahead, so we managed to stay back. But that likely has the opportunity to cost us the DRS from the Alpine in front of us. And indeed, we are 1.1 seconds off the back of that Alpine. So having to burn all of our battery now. It's a pretty short run between the DRS line and the actual start-finish line, but AI very strong in a straight. Here he goes, switching to the outside. He's actually got us just before the end. We didn't quite hold up, so 14th, the best we can do in the sprint race, and not a great opportunity there.
So with the sprint concluded, join us next time for qualifying and of course the main event, this weekend's Formula One Grand Prix. We will see you next time. Atmospheric tracks don't come much better than this. We're in Brazil for qualifying. Let's get some laps at the limit.
Okay, here's an update. We've got a leak in the hydraulic system, so it's going to be a few minutes before we can get you back out on track, I'm afraid.
So, unfortunately, a little bit of time lost with that repair needed, but here we are in this damp qualifying session. Intermediate tires on the car, and as always with qualifying sessions, very difficult. A little half spin there through turn 3, trying to get the power down. And it's not the way you typically want to start a qualifying session. So let's get around the track once again. Warm up for another flying lap, as our first one was over before it really even started. Obviously, lots of work to be found and done here in our Delta. Wow, look at that. We've made 4 seconds already. Yeah, because we spun. Our only valid event. And with 12 and a half minutes left to go in the session, almost 13, and Our engineer's talking about a potential clear patch in 10 minutes. It could get very interesting at the end of the qualifying session if it dries up just enough for slick tires. Realistically, even if it doesn't, it's going to really benefit us to be one of the last out on the circuit, as it seems the rain will be reducing the whole way. Verstappen a 14.0, so we are lapping around 7 seconds off of dry qualifying pace from the sprint. Another snap of oversteers trying to get the power on through very tricky section of track. Usually you can, on worn tires in the dry, even get the back end a little unstable through that left-hander, but we're going to find, let's see, 21 minus 5, we're going to be in the 16s, so we're still going to be roughly 2 seconds or so off of the pace of Verstappen. A 15.952 is not good enough to move us off the back row. Here we are, another lap in the books, and we do improve, go to the 15.246, up a couple spots to P18 now, including a session best final sector. Likely means we are not carrying enough downforce, and trying to go for another lap on the bounce, not really going to do much. So here we are, jumping ahead. Track drying up as we've continued on a new set of tires. 5 minutes left to go. We're going to find about 0.7 of a second this time through. Nobody else out on a run. This does jump us up to P10, so some time finding, and you can see track looking a little bit brighter. Another run around the circuit, and you can see we're on our way into the pit lane this time. Don't know why I kept that in there. Now jumping out as the track is drying up. We're starting the final flying lap. Lots of time found in the first 3 corners, obviously because the track is dry and we're on the slick tire now. And we are going to be one of the last ones to finish a lap. So lap time coming down, the 108s, we're finding about 3 seconds. We're going to be well off even still. Struggling. It's not a very dry circuit for slick. Still pretty damp, but we're still looking at the 1 minute 10s. Of course, we have had one of the best final sectors of anyone all day. Well, we're going to get down, looks like, into the 109s. But with the pole positions down in the 108s, we're probably going to be middle of the pack. So across the line, where are we at? 16th. So even with the best of the conditions, really struggling qualifying pace here around Brazil. So 108.3 was pole time. We did a 109.4. We do at least manage to out-qualify our teammate this time, which is pretty rare.
Formula One returns to Interlagos once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his 3rd championship here in 2012, and in 2016, Max Verstappen treated us all to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil, is a 2.7 mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. The fastest lap today should have an average speed of around 135 miles per hour, if of course the weather stays dry until the end of the Grand Prix. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Oscar Piastri, Stroll, Tsunoda, Bottas, Hamilton, Gasly, Joe, Ocon, Old-Timer, Sainz, Sargent, Ricciardo, Albon, Russell, and Nico Hülkenberg rounds off the grid. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me, a real authority on all things motor racing. It's a warm welcome back to Anthony Davidson. Well, they're having a better time than their teammates so far this year. How do you keep that momentum going? Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, you know, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
You've got some work to do to match your result from last race. Come on, we know you can do it.
So taking a look at the strategies, we're going to go soft onto medium here. So regular one stop, try and pit on lap 15. Might go just a touch early in order to try and get a bit of an undercut going on the cars around us. But thanks to engine penalties, we are up at 14th. So a couple of people starting a little further back. And a slow reaction off the line, but even slow for Zhou in front of us. We can try and pick our way around. We've actually got a bit of a nose ahead of Carlos Sainz. Around the outside of Ocon we go, and a little bit of a slowdown on the apex of turn 2 is going to allow Ocon to get some momentum headed down to turn 4. Going to try and use the tow and the slipstream from Pierre Gasly ahead, but it's going to get very interesting into turn 4. We kind of slot in behind Ocon there. So one position gained in the opening corner there, and looks like there's a Red Bull streaking off out into the lead of this race already by a pretty comfortable margin. Unlike the sprint, well, maybe we can get about close enough to make a big old dive down the inside of Ocon. And then once again, try and hold the outside, get the power down. He's got a bit of a run. If he gets enough ahead, he'll squeak up and close the door. But we do manage to hold that position, another spot up into P12. So points are on offer here. It's going to take some effort to get there, especially over the total course of the race, and then also hope that we don't end up with the detached groups like we often do. So Verstappen up in the lead of the race, setting the fastest lap into the 1:18 to start from a standing start on the first lap here, but now starting to carry on, gets settled into the rhythm. Of course, the Grand Prix about 3 times as long as the sprint race, 36 laps here instead of just 12. So we do need to manage the tires a bit more. We were having some pretty rough times on our soft tires at the very end of the sprint race where we started on much less fuel. So I'm definitely going to be worrying about the soft tires as we get to the end of their stint. It's possible we may have to make some on-the-fly strategy decisions and come in early if that is needed. Big dive up the inside into the final hairpin as we are picking out a decent overtaking opportunity. They're slowed down on the racing line by all the cars ahead, and up ahead of an Alpine now with just a McLaren between us and 1 point on the board. So settling in, getting the DRS open, we should be able to stick in this train, and just as opportunities become available to us, get through. There is a Sauber, a couple spots I think I spotted up there. Green car. Yeah, just ahead of the Mercedes, Aston, and McLaren that are ahead of us. So likely a car that should float back down the order towards us, although we were fighting with the Saubers in the sprint race, and they've shown pretty decent pace already in that sprint race. So it's just going to be about keeping up with the McLaren. We are starting to lose a little bit of ground. See, 8/10 the margin, although the middle sector and last sector is typically our strongest. I believe we're carrying a little bit more downforce than some of the other cars around. So you can see already about 2/10 eaten into them, nearly 3/10 through a couple of corners. So we should be able to stay nicely in the DRS window on the cars ahead as we are just getting towards the end of lap 3. Again, Junsao, tricky little braking zone, trying to get the car rotated, and then you're always so eager to get on the power because it's such an important high-speed section. Using some battery in order to make sure that Gasly doesn't get a run on us. We've actually lost a bit of ground to Piastri and the McLaren ahead of us this time. Let's jump ahead a handful of laps. Lap 12 of 36, and you can see still in the same spot, but there's a big fight going on ahead of us as it looks like a slow-moving Ferrari having a little bit of trouble in the pack. The Sauber gets by. It looks like there is a RB that's trying to get by. We have Gasly lunging up the inside of us, kind of clips us, and we're very sideways through there now, which is not going to be great for tire temperatures or for trying to attack this group. Big wheel spin again. As we had in the sprint race, heating up that rear tire as it gets very worn and hot and losing all kinds of grip, trying to just hold on to the cars ahead and now finally get a little bit of a chance to cool these rear tires down. You can see that right rear, 107C boil water in it, and that is well higher than the operating temperature you'd want to have on it. Even the inside, the rear left, is still over 103. So very likely it's going to be tough to hold on to this position. In fact, that Sauber has jumped away now that he's made that pass on the Ferrari. And we are just barely hanging on to the DRS of the cars ahead. It's 3 wide nearly into turn 4. That should create quite the traffic jam for us to close up on indeed. Now it's 2 wide, side by side, Ferrari, Visa, Cash App, RB, and they just slot in. We've got a good run on the McLaren. Are we going to dive to the inside into the right-hander? Indeed we do. And that'll net us a position up into the points-paying ones. And now this RB just ahead of us is an opportunity for some more points on offer. So trying to continue to work our way forward through this battle. As long as we get a little bit of a train to stay stuck in with, we can continue to just mosey our way forward and not get destroyed too much. It looks like that Sauber is starting to be caught a little bit by, or no, that's the Aston Martin. The Sauber has checked out. So we do have the RB, the Ferrari, and the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin has lost DRS on that Sauber out in front. So the nature of the meta of the game at this stage, once that gap starts opening up, very difficult to reconnect to another group unless they have some sort of problem. And now just kind of settling in and trying to stay with the RB and Ferrari, who is doing a decent job staying with that Aston Martin. So we're up into 9th and 10th now. And so we're looking at what? 9th, 8th, potentially 7th there. If we can get all the way to the front of this group ahead of the Aston Martin. We should be getting just towards the end of the tire life of these softs as well. Gone as far, a little bit further than the sprint. Looks like potentially a little nose-to-tail contact with the RB there. And a bad exit. The McLaren trying to get a run, sticking his nose up the inside before Junsao, but backs out of it, thinks better of it. And this time, lap 14 of 36. You see tires very worn, temperature becoming a big issue, and it looks like actually the Ferrari has lost touch with the Aston Martin. So it's going to be very important for us to try and get at least good enough on our in-lap to try and undercut the Aston Martin, maybe close up the gap. The McLaren in the slipstream in the mirror, getting closer and closer, but not quite there to fight with us. And oh, big slide coming up the hill on that lap, and that's definitely put the tires in a pretty bad state. McLaren having a little look to the outside, but nothing really doing there. And you can see the tire warning indicator in the MFD definitely saying, yep, it's time to pit. McLaren makes contact with us a little bit in that corner, so it's a tough one. And wheel spin out of Junsao again. Couple of glitches there as I was having some audio issues that I had to go back and fix and flash back to that I had to edit. So luckily I was able to get those rectified, but for some reason the audio started ducking to basically 0. So I had to use flashbacks to reset those couple of ones. But into the pit lane we go. A little bit of a tight entry issue on the left rear. So 4-second pit stop. We could have been out ahead of the Ferrari, but now behind the Ferrari, and that's going to make it very tough for us potentially to try and undercut the Aston Martin. A little brush of the exit wall there. And now we are on the medium tire as cars around us are on the hard tire at the end of this race. So don't know why I asked what Leclerc was doing. Oh, he does have a problem. Okay, that's why I was asking. He's like, he's very slow. Does he have an issue? And indeed, Leclerc has a mechanical issue. So it's going to be very important for us to get past him quickly, not let him hold us up. Usually cars with these mechanical issues are very slow in the cornering. Tend to be decent enough on the straights to stay out of too much trouble, but he won't have any DRS. We've got a pretty full battery to play with. And we're going to go ahead and deploy that overtake. See if he holds up Gasly at all. So rear wing opens up. He's to the inside. We go around the outside on the racing line. And then down into turn 1 we go. Through the Senna S's. See Ocon getting a decent release out of the pit exit. Where is he going to be on our left? Should slot in just behind the Ferrari we're giving DRS to. So now we've got Piastri ahead of us. 1.3 seconds, which, you know, kind of looks an awful lot like the time lost in the pit lane from that slow stop. So we've got some work to do to close back up to him. We are into the points now. Still in P10. I don't think, or potentially there might be some other cars ahead of us that need to pit. Maybe one of the RBs.
Car ahead now running medium tyres. Okay, gap to the car ahead, 2.0 seconds.
But Alonso setting the fastest lap of the race out in leading. Looks like a Red Bull into the pit lane. Trundling to the exit, so well ahead of us. We're not going to be any threat to him. And Leclerc storming on the DRS there. Looks like whatever issue he had might be resolved at this stage. A little deep there, track limits warning. But at this point, I'm just kind of thinking Ferrari's the faster car. If we can just hang in with him, maybe he'll pull us towards the McLaren. And there is a little bit of a pack of McLaren, RB, and Aston. So jumping ahead, indeed, that is what happened. We're on lap 22, so you can see there is Leclerc going around Tsunoda in the RB. He's gotten a pretty compromised exit. We've got a pretty good run. So up the inside of the RB we go. We're just going to, again, not try and do too much on Leclerc. We had an opportunity for a big lunge, but now we got Piastri being backed up by the Sauber, who had checked out earlier, so I wonder if he had some kind of issue. But opportunities for more points once again at looking ahead of us as 7th place potentially on the card. Still 14 laps to go in this race. Nowhere close to over. The full sprint race distance +2 still yet to be completed in this one. So a lot of action in this Grand Prix so far. And it looks like a good battle on the track map between a Red Bull and Aston Martin for the lead. But here we go. Leclerc trying to make a move on the Sauber of Bottas. We have a little bit of a look of thinking of trying to follow Leclerc through. Not going to be on the cards this time. Battery is fairly low. We are burning what we've got. Can we get past Bottas quickly enough to do what we were doing before? Stick to the back of the Ferrari? Not quite there. But we are on the slightly better tire here, potentially. We are a little ways into the tire life of it, about 10 laps done. We can have a look to the inside of Bottas, a little bit of a think of it.
Nice work. That's why I love working with you.
Not quite, and then, right, have a look now to the inside. Big lunge up the inside, contact. We stay to the inside. He kind of turns in. I think we might have just about got it slowed down. It was very important to get that move done because you could see just before we cut away, the gap between us and Leclerc after making that overtake 0.95 seconds. So nearly falling out of DRS, but we just about hold on to that DRS. And now McLaren and Aston Martin fighting ahead of us. And we're going to once again utilize the speed of that Ferrari to try and carve ourselves up a couple of more places. Oh, it looks like, yeah, McLaren has had a big mistake as the Aston Martin really jetted away from him. Side by side goes the Ferrari and the McLaren into turn 4. Can we find our way through? Ferrari out a little bit wider than the McLaren. It's still almost side by side. Leclerc has to tuck back in behind Piastri. A good quick sweep. A little bit of a thought of a lunge to the inside there, but nothing doing on that move and settling in. Can we try and get a lunge done on Leclerc now that we've closed up a little bit of a look, but nothing really doing this time in one of our favorite overtaking areas of the circuit. So it is as we were before, now just cruising around. And the DRS should flip open soon. Jumping ahead, lap 30 of 36. We stayed station to station for a little while. Once again, gotten involved with this group. We've just about caught the Aston Martin. We've got a very good run out of turn 4. He had to take a compromise line as Leclerc got around him. We're way on the outside. It's very marbly out here. We're going to continue to hold out around the outside, but he's going to get fully through. Just not enough grip offline in order to try and make that move stick. It was a valiant attempt. And now we're starting to pay the price as our tires are getting a little toasty from the extra strain being put in them. Looking at the timing tower on the left there, George Russell in 11th, about 4.5 seconds back. So we do have a bit of daylight to work with in case we're essentially locked into the points. Oh, good slipstream headed down to turn 1. We're going to switch it to the outside, have a lunge down the outside of the McLaren. A little deep. Can we get to the inside of turn 2? Side by side, a little contact. Definitely a bit of contact there. Piastri having to lift out of it. And that allows the Alpine through. A little bit of, I would say, not the friendliest overtake I've ever made. But job gets done. So now trying to make up the deficit to the cars ahead. Leclerc has gotten ahead of the Aston Martin, and he's on those hard tires as Leclerc, as is the Aston Martin. It looks like hard tires for both of them. But Leclerc has been just excellent in pace so far over the course of this race. So it's a little bit of a loss to see him finally get ahead of a car. We need to now try and see if we can't get past Alonso. Or I think this is Stroll. Definitely not Alonso. It's an Aston Martin. It's definitely Stroll. Alonso's fighting for the lead of the race down towards turn 4 at the moment. DRS is open. Now it's just going to be kind of a matter of saving up some battery, and maybe if we can get a chance for Leclerc to break away from Stroll, leave Stroll vulnerable without DRS. We've actually made 1 second to Piastri there, but we're going to jump ahead. Lap 35 of 36, so 2 laps left to go in this one. Piastri once again back inside that 1 second margin of us. We are back about half a second to Stroll. It's going to be side-by-side fighting between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari into turn 4. We wait for them to see, and indeed the Aston Martin back through on the Ferrari of Leclerc. And it's going to be nice and tight as we head up the hill. Potentially an opportunity for that big lunge into the braking zone. Not quite this time. Can we stick to the gearbox of Leclerc? And indeed, look how close we can get. Definitely in an opportune position to try and lunge past. We switch to the inside. Side by side, he turns in. We get the brakes done. I think that time was not particularly rude on our part. Definitely more rude on his part as he turned in while we were right next to him. We even put wheels on the curb to try and hold our line tight. But we do get through on the Ferrari. Now looking ahead, there is 1 car left in our train. It is this Aston Martin who is going to be lacking DRS. We've got a good overspeed on him. Trying to do one of my league specials. Slow up just a bit. Let him have the nose at the detection point. He actually turns in and makes contact with us. But that does give him the nose on the detection point, which means we have the DRS, but he's got good straight line speed. He's using battery to fight with it. We're going to try and go late around the outside, leave the space for him. Side by side, up the hill. Once again, we're burning whatever battery we can, and it's not quite going to be enough. Leclerc now having a little look on us as we try and get on the power. One more overtaking opportunity really left. Leclerc sticking a nose on the inside as we lock up into the right-hander. And I think we're going to be just a little too far back to try and make the move stick, trying to gain battery, whatever we can in this middle section of the lap. About half a second, 6/10. Alonso comes through for the race win as he managed to drop the Red Bull in the final stages. In fact, it looks like McLaren has beaten him to the punch. Out of the Junsao we go. Full battery deployment, DRS open. What is the final margin going to be? Can we get close if we're too far back for the drag race and indeed come home in
pick up rubber and
P8?
bring it home.
7. I was totally paying attention. P7.
Fernando Alonso has done it, and he takes the win.
Race victory and fastest lap as well. You can see how much, by the way, that fastest lap mattered to them today. They're looking for absolute dominance, and this seems to be their mission this year.
It's time to present the top drivers with their trophies for today's Grand Prix. There are a lot of people in the paddock very happy with this result. It's Aston Martin on the top step.
The Aston Martin car starting to look pretty good at the tail end of Season 1 here. But 3 different cars on the podium this time. An Aston Martin, a Red Bull, and a McLaren. So pretty good result for the 3 of them. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think Verstappen might have already locked up by now. Well, we'll look at the points.
Well, that certainly was an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.
Alonso with the fastest lap point as well. Significant pace on his hands. Nico Hülkenberg makes up 4 spots for the P20 finish. Verstappen, 144 points out in the lead. I believe that might be enough at this stage. I haven't done the math for the championship, and of course, constructors, he's got a healthy advantage in as well. We're up at the 9th in the Drivers' Championship on 146 points. Still have some work to do before the end of the season, but we have the Las Vegas Grand Prix coming up next. So another home race for us, and a potentially a circuit that fits our car characteristic of being typically pretty quick in a straight line. But we'll find out. Let's get our material planner, our testers, our specialists, that's the word I'm looking for, set up with some pretty easily achievable ones. Nothing too crazy. Headed over to R&D, I believe we still have the ability to, okay, so we've saved all of our developments, not looking to spend any development cash on anything else in the aero department. Really, tire wear is the next big one we want to target. But we do have some work to do, so can afford this improved weight reduction for the energy store. Do we dare? Probably not dare for the rush. It's probably not going to get there in time. So we go for the regular time. It's still a pretty high failure chance. Engine-wise, can we afford anything? Nothing really else on these 101 points, although we do get a little bit of a payout before. But there's a pretty healthy gap for us to close up to catch the next car in the tech development tree. So advancing we go. So we're going to get 2 sets of payouts. We have improved energy store cells. Nice. So that's a good improvement coming for the next weekend.
Without any issue, so they'll be on the car, ready for the next race weekend.
Around 22 of 24. Long seasons in this one. And then we will see what we can afford. It looks like Nico has paid up for other development coming, and now we do have access to the heave dampers, but we can't quite afford it. It looks like we can afford an ERS improvement. At this point, not likely to make it to the end of the year, so realistically, only a smart choice is to rush it. If it fails, it wasn't going to be ready for the end of the year anyway, so we'll just complete the upgrade in the off season. But thank you for sticking around once again. This was a healthy, long one. 50 minutes almost, I think. That's what it'll end up being. But we head to Las Vegas next time, which should be a good race. It's an interesting track. Still mixed feelings about it 2 years on. But I will catch you guys next time. Thank y'all. Peace.